Who should the Sharks trade, sign, draft? I set out my roadmap to success for this week and what I would do if I was Mike Grier.
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast of your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, contributor at San Jose Hockey Now. I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen, proudly a part of the Locked On Network, where we cover your team every day. And we are officially in draft week. I am on the road in Nashville. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see it is not the normal what's going on behind. So if the sound or anything is a little off, I apologize. On the road, trying to do the best I can for you guys to try to get the best coverage I can. So, plenty of fun stuff coming this week. I already walked down to Nashville, or already walked around a little bit in Nashville, went down to Bridgestone, all that fun stuff. So, but today we're going to be talking about my roadmap for the week, the players I would trade, the players I would trade for. I'm going to talk about the draft picks I would make because, spoiler, I am getting a lot of draft picks here soon. And then the free agents and RFAs I would either re-sign or look to get to try to kind of insulate the team right now as the Sharks go through their rebuilding process, kind of year two of their rebuild under Mike Grier. So let's start with the trade. So I went through, made my own fun little thing on Cap Friendly when they have their player, their armchair GM. So let's start with the big one, of course, Erik Karlsson. So I know there's a lot of who knows what type of thing with Erik Karlsson. I trade Erik Karlsson a little north to the Seattle Kraken, and basically the trade it's a really simple trade. The 2023 first round pick, that's number 20. For Erik Karlsson at $3 million retained. And I know the Sharks probably aren't going to get a lot for it, but I will take the quality of the first round pick in this year's draft at number 20 and eat $3 million for the next 4 seasons and send Erik Karlsson off to a team that it's on the rise. They're, a lot of depth, but they need that star player, and having a guy like Erik Karlsson, if continue to do what he can do, especially with the type of defense that they have in Seattle, and let kind of Erik Karlsson be that rover, be that guy, and continue to find success there. We know Sven likes the Bay Area. I think if they like the Bay, they're probably going to like Seattle as well, type of situation. But I think for the Sharks, though, getting pick 20 in this year's draft, I know, there's probably other deals and but I think getting that quality pick at pick number 20, again, who knows what this deal is going to be like. I thought this was a fair enough deal for both parties, where the Kraken are getting a superstar that they need, and the Sharks, yes, they're eating $3 million, but they're getting back a quality pick in quality pick in number 20. So that's the first trade. The second trade is everyone's favorite player, Kevin Labanc, sending him to Arizona for a 2023 third round pick, which was the Islanders pick. I believe that is pick number 81 in this year's draft. Sharks aren't going to retain anything. The Coyotes, they're trying to be more competitive this year, right? Kevin Labanc has 1 year left on his deal, at 4.75 or whatever it is. They need some contracts to get them to the salary floor. And I think for a team that is going to start to kind of starting to be a little bit more fun and frisky, Kevin Labanc can kind of add to that, add some scoring punch to that team. I think that the relationship with Quinn and Labanc may not be the best, and I think both parties would be good for a fresh start. And getting a third-round pick for Kevin Labanc and not having to eat any salary feels fair on all. I think both teams feel kind of a little like we might have overpaid or we may not get enough for Kevin Labanc, but I think that's what makes it a fair deal for both teams right there. So I sent one Kevin Labanc to the Coyotes as they continue to, do whatever they're doing down in Arizona. So, and then the last trade I made, this one is more of a salary cap dump from another team as the Sharks try to weaponize some of their cap space. So I kind of highlighted this deal when I did the Weaponize the Cap Space episode. Anthony Mantha from the Washington Capitals. So it's Anthony Mantha and the 2023 second round pick, their second round pick. And then I send back Noah Gregor's rights in a 2023 fourth round pick, which would be the Colorado pick. So I think that's like pick 123 or whatever it is. So for the Caps, they are trying to shed some salary. They still want to try to compete with Ovechkin. As long as Ovechkin's on the roster, they're going to try to put out a winning roster, winning team. They dump Anthony Mantha's salary, gives them flexibility to go be a little more proactive in free agency, and they get back a cheap player that is perfectly cromulent third liner in Noah Gregor, who can, he can help on this team kind of solidify that bottom six for them. And his salary is probably going to be in the, probably around $1 million type of thing. So it's again, Noah Gregor, I think he's kind of run his course in San Jose. We know exactly what he is. Maybe on a different team with some other players around him, he can find that scoring touch type of situation, or maybe he's utilized different, who knows type of thing. But fresh start for Noah Gregor, and then the Sharks, eating some salary cap, and then they have Anthony Mantha, who's on the last year of his deal at 1 year at $5.8 million, $5.7 million. So gives the Sharks another asset to kind of play with going forward. Again, he's only got 1 year left on his deal. So those are kind of the three trades I made. Erik Karlsson into Seattle gives the Sharks, gets them off of the majority of Erik Karlsson's contract for the next few seasons. Yes, they're going to have to eat some contract, but if you can get pick number 20 in this year's draft, you're probably going to feel pretty good about where the player that you're getting there. And for the Kraken, you're going to have Matty Beniers, Erik Karlsson, and then potentially Shane Wright. That's a pretty solid foundation right there for what they're building up in Seattle, and having a team that went to the playoffs last year, having Erik Karlsson added to that. And if Matty Beniers continues to take the steps that we think Matty Beniers is, Matty Beniers is one of my favorite players in that draft. I think I had him first until the very end and then I picked William Eklund. But, and Shane Wright, who was supposed to be the number one pick last year, like that, you feel like, yes, you got a really, really solid foundation going forward. And then adding Erik Karlsson. With Kevin Labanc, like I said, just getting off his contract, I think fresh start for both parties, and a third round pick for the Coyotes, who have 1,000 picks to begin with in this draft. I think that is, like I said, I think both teams feel a little like we probably could have gotten a little bit more, but I feel the compensation is totally fair for everybody. So before we get into what I'm doing with those draft picks and the players that I'm doing in my mock draft with all these picks, do want to take a quick break, talk to you guys about our friends over at eBay Motors. And for a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guarantee Fit, you can make sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to the My Garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game. And when you shop on eBay Motors, you have over 122 million parts to choose from. You'll be back in the game in no time. So after all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. So find the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guarantee Fit, only available to U.S. customers, eligible items only. Exclusions apply. All right, so let's look at what we have for draft capital. So basically, it's mostly kind of picks in the top 4 rounds change. So I did a 4-round mock because anything after that is dart throws type of situation. So with the trades that I made, now the Sharks would have pick number 4, pick number 20, pick number 26, pick number 36, pick number 40, pick number 81, pick 96, and pick 100. So you'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 picks in the top 100. So this draft is setting the foundation for future success right here. And you pair this with the 2020 draft. You feel like and then you got William Eklund out of the 2021 draft. And then next, the Beasted and, hopefully like a Cam Lund or, Havle, like you're starting to get the pieces together here for the future. So here's what I picked. So pick number 4, I went Will Smith. That's going to be the pick. I know I personally would go Michkov, but I went Will Smith in here because I wanted to be more Mike Grierish, kind of how I think what he would type of player or players that he would type of pick. So I would go Michkov personally, but I'm going, and for the sake of this, we're going Will Smith. That feels like it's going to be the pick. And again, as I've highlighted several times before, Will Smith's a great player. And the Sharks fans, we're going to be very happy to have Will Smith in the pipeline here soon. With the 20th pick, the pick from the Kraken, I picked defenseman Tom Willander. So he is the one who I picked in our Locked On mock draft. I don't think he's going to be there at 26, and 20 feels more like he is going to be there. For the mock draft here, I went with the Bob McKenzie rankings because those feel like the most accurate. So getting Willander, who is going to be a solid second pairing defenseman. If he can continue to develop his offense, the Sharks feel like they're going to have, a hit there with him if they get him at 20. So pick 26, I went Callum Ritchie, a center. So Ritchie, we did not do a report on him because I feel like he's going to be probably out of range, but he fell in this, and I was happy to scoop him up. 6'2", 187-pound right-handed defenseman, and great hockey IQ, great vision, versatile. Needs to work on his skating a little bit, but if he can kind of figure that out, the Sharks could be getting a potential steal for him at 26. So Callum Ritchie there. You have Smith, Callum Ritchie to kind of start. And at pick 36, I picked Riley Heidt, another center who's probably going to be a winger going forward. But again, just the potential there of continuing to try to build down the middle for the Sharks. And if it doesn't work out, you can always move these guys to the wings type of situations. But kind of building the building blocks here of what Mike Grier wants to add. So feeling really good about that. And then pick 40, which was the Washington Capitals pick. I picked goalie Michael Hrabal, the first goalie off the board. I know I like Trey Augustine a little bit there, but I think with 5 picks in the first 40, you can just try to grab who you think is going to be the best one. Maybe, there. And Hrabal at 40 to go with Smith, Willander, Ritchie, and Height. Sign me up for that. So then the Sharks pick at 81 again, which was the Islanders pick that they got from the Coyotes in the Kevin Labanc trade. I drafted Aram Minatian, a defenseman on the U.S. national team program. I believe he's going to Boston College. So there. 6 foot. He's got to add a little bit of weight, solid in his own end, but needs to kind of continue to work on his kind of transition game type of player. But, I think you send him to college for the next few years and we'll see you in 4 years type of situation. Let him continue to develop there. So then pick 96, another defenseman, Brady Cleveland. He's very tall, 6'5". Also, I believe on the USND TP program as well. So continue to add pieces to that back end blue line. And then pick number 100, which would now be the last pick the Sharks have in the top 4 rounds. I got Emil Hervanti, a forward out of Finland. Has some pop when it comes to scoring, and kind of one of those, he's 5'10" players, but does have some scoring pop and could be one of those guys where you kind of let him develop over there for a couple of years and then bring him over to the Barracuda and see what happens there. So, yeah, that will be my projected Sharks draft from Mike Grier's angle. So with multiple top 40 picks, getting a guy like Will Smith, who's going to potentially be your first line center, right? You have Willander, who can be a second pairing defenseman. Callum Ritchie and Riley Heidt both have potential top 6 in them as well. And then hopefully you solve your goaltending issues of the future with Michael Hrabal. I know, Gregory Ballack was a little cooler on him being, especially being a bigger guy, and it wasn't his favorite. But again, if that's your fifth pick, remember your fifth pick in this draft is your goalie, and it just so happens to be the top goalie, a potential top goalie in the draft. I think it's worth it there. You could have also maybe picked somebody else there and package some of your other picks to move up to go get like a Trey Augustine or whoever you feel good about, or you could have just drafted Trey Augustine there. But I thought kind of the value married with the kind of need really, really fit there. So, yeah, you pair this with Eklund. The 2020 draft is starting to come to fruition. Beasted and Havlid and Lund and whoever else pops from last year's draft. Feeling really good about your pipeline here going forward, especially if utilizing the assets you just traded in the first segment, and then going forward with the players that you drafted in that you're going to draft here. Feel pretty good about where the direction of the Sharks if they go. If Mike Grier listens to me, Mike Grier, if you're listening, what's up, buddy? So before we get into the free agents and who I would sign and the RFAs I would bring back and stuff like that, I do want to let you guys know, of course, about the 2023 Locked On NHL Mock Draft Special. Local hosts like myself of the Locked On NHL channel have made their picks, and hosts Gil and Hattie break down every selection over a 3-day event, a mock draft event. You can find all the episodes on the NHL or on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. So, of course, I make 2 picks in there, so you can go see who I picked for the Sharks and what you think of that. I think most fans would be pretty happy with my picks, at least anyway. All right, so let's look at the players I would sign and the free agent, the RFAs I would sign, and then the free agents I would go after, and then kind of the health of the team going forward with my projected offseason. So the big re-signings for me, for for RFAs. So we'll start with the RFAs. Eetu Makiniemi, I signed 1 year, vet min, $775,000, and he's going to go play in the Barracuda. He's going to be your top goalie in the Barracuda, and then if someone gets hurt, he is your first man up to kind of get called. So that's kind of going to be his role this year, is kind of the bounce between there. So and then all the cap numbers I based off Evolving Hockey's cap projections. Try to be fair deals. Like, of course, I'm not going to be able to sign Alex DeBrincat for $1 million type of situation. I tried to be based off Evolving Hockey's numbers and projections. So Eetu Makiniemi is just projected to have a vet min contract. So Martin Kaut, I re-signed him to a 2-year deal at $1 million a season. I think his cap hit is kind of somewhere around what was his projected one? I'll pull it up right now. I should actually have gotten it done first. But so Martin Kaut, he's projected a 1 year 905. So I just did it 2 years, 2 years at $1 million just to kind of make it nice and even. So and again, Kaut's probably going to be one of the, we'll get into kind of his role, but one of those guys will probably have to go through waivers type of situation, and probably will be a bit of a bouncier for Kaut type of thing. But if somebody gets hurt, he's probably going to be kind of one of those first guys up type of situations. So and then Fabian Zetterlund, I re-signed him, of course, part of the Sharks Timo Meier trade. So he is projected a 2-year 1.6. So I just made it It was like 1.65 or something like that. So I just rounded up to $1.7 million per season. So re-signed Fabian Zetterlund. And then Jacob Peterson, who the Sharks traded for at the trade deadline last year as well, re-signed him to a 2-year, $1 million year contract. So a little bit higher than projected, but just for the sake of numbers, makes it a little bit easier. And I thought Peterson really showed himself well, and this could be one of those contracts where you look back and go, yeah, that's a steal type of thing. And then I re-signed Evgeny Svechnikov to a 1-year vet min, $775,000 with a just kind of, you'll kind of see his role type of situation where you know exactly what he's going to get. And then in free agency, open up the pocketbooks a little bit, nothing too crazy. So among the forwards, I signed Pius Sutter from previously of the Detroit Red Wings. Feel like he can kind of help add some depth down the middle, and then good defensive shutdown type of player. So he got a 2-year contract at $2.5 million. So again, just, you know, he's still relatively young, and I feel like he can kind of help out in the middle six here for the Sharks, especially if injuries, trades, all that fun stuff. He can, you know, versatility to play center or wing, whatever you kind of need. I think kind of one of those glue guys to kind of play whatever you need. So as goalie, because again, I didn't want to have E2 Makiniemi. I didn't want to go run into the season with Kakinen and Makiniemi, especially with the injury history that McAnemi's had. And I think it's a little much to ask him to kind of come in and be, I don't think either player's ready for that role of Kaapo Kakinen kind of being the guy and McAnemi being, you know, a 35-40 start player in the NHL yet. So I went out and signed Jonas Korpisalo to 2 years, $3 million a season. It was a little bit, had to kind of give him a little bit of a bump there. I think it was around like 2.6 or something like that was his expected. But I gave him 3 to kind of come and play for a bad team type of situation. So a little bit of a bump there. But again, I think Korpisalo, he's proven he can play behind a bad defense. Hello, Columbus. And I think he helps solidify the goaltending, which has been a hot mess for the Sharks. And kind of like the end of Martin Jones, right? Like it's hard to evaluate the players in front of you if the goaltending is just letting in terrible goals, and kind of your team's already down 2-0. Like this is a big evaluation year for a lot of these young players. So having someone who can just be like competent in net would be huge for the Sharks. So, and then I tried to fill the Erik Karlsson role a little bit. So I signed John Klingberg to a 1-year, $5 million deal. And last year he got a 1-year, $7 million deal, and with kind of like a prove it type of thing. And of course he got traded at the deadline from the Ducks to the to the Wild, and it didn't really work out for him here last year. So basically my speech to Klingberg would be like, here, you're not going to have any competition on the right-handed side. You know, we know the Ducks had like Jamie Drysdale. Like I know he was missed most of the season, but like it's going to be kind of your spot. And right, and look at what Erik Karlsson did last year in that role. Go out, have yourself a nice season this year, and then you can kind of go into next year where you can, you know, be like, hey, look at the numbers I put on this team, you know, when given a chance type of situation. So, and then 1 year is $5 million. Again, it's a bit of, you have to give them a little bit more or whatever. The Sharks can easily afford it this year, but try to keep it to that 1-year deal with him where it's like, come in, reestablish yourself as a offensive defenseman that you are. You're going to get all the power play opportunities you want. You're going to, you know, all the opportunities to try to provide offense. So that's where I, you know, kind of landed with that. So then they would fill out some guys for the Barracuda and stuff like that. That's whatever. So I was more focused on the Sharks. So that gives me a roster right now. So here's my kind of here's my lines right now. So first line, William Eklund, Hertl, and Anthony Mantha. Mantha, go out there and try to score as much as you can. Jacob Peterson, Lone Couture, Alexander Barabanov on the second line, Pius Suter, Nico Sturm, and Fabian Zetterlund on the third. Oscar Lindblom, Steven Lawrence, and Luke Cunnin on the fourth. And then Svechnikov and Martin Count would be your extras. Notice Thomas Borlo does not make the opening night roster right now. So defense, it'd be Vlasic and Klingberg, Henry Thrun and Matt Benning, Ferraro and Knizhov, and then with Jacob McDonald as your extra. And then I buried Radim Shimmick with the Barracuda. They have Korpisalo and Capo Kakinen. So this team is not winning a lot of games, which is totally fine. I am very much in the rebuild mode right here. So, but what this does for the team's future, their future is what you're looking at. So going ahead, they have so they'd finish the season. They still have $7 million in cap space, almost $8 million in cap space this season with the roster I just generated. So you can still be throughout the season. If someone needs to dump a bad contract, someone like you still have plenty of options to be that guy to like, hey, someone needs to dump a bad contract. Mike Grier is your man for that type of situation. Just got to swing some assets my way. So they would only have one retained salary slot between Brent Burns and Erik Karlsson, taking up two of them. But again, they have plenty of cap space this year where they can just easily facilitate that and just kind of take on bad contracts for you. So, but what this does for next year, though, let me finish it this year. That gives you also one for the forwards. You'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 forwards who are going into expiring contracts this year. So that is guys you can trade. So if Anthony Mantha has a bounce back season, trade him at the deadline. Luke Cunnin comes back. Team wants to add some grit and scoring at the trade him at the deadline. Alexander Barabanov, you can decide if you want to continue to re-sign Barabanov or if someone's willing to give you a very nice trade offer for Barabanov, trade him at the trade deadline. Oscar Lindblom, nobody's calling for Oscar Lindblom, but Steven Lawrence, if somebody wants to help out their bottom, their fourth line with a great penalty killer and guy who can pop some offense for you as well, you trade him there. Svechnikov, kind of the same thing. And then you have John Klingberg on defense where if he has a great season and a team comes calling, cool, man. You are on your way type of situation. So you've set yourself up this season to be very active again at the trade deadline with those kind of pieces that teams are looking for. No massive like monster pieces, but again, you have some guys that you could potentially grab more assets for type of situation. So, and then the cap going into next year. So next year, the Sharks have a roster going into free agency. They have a roster size of 13 with their, and they'd have almost $40 million in projected cap space going into next offseason with the signings I have. And you would have to re-sign Bordelot and some guys like that, but nobody's breaking the bank next year. Like the Sharks, you'd be setting yourself up for a long-term success with this, where you're kind of helping to clear some cap space, you're getting some assets back. And then next year, if you want to be a little bit more aggressive in free agency and start to add some pieces as your Eklunds and your Bordelots and, some of your other guys starting to kind of make their presence, and you want to start to kind of shift from full-on rebuild to, okay, we can start being a little bit more fun and frisky now. You're going to have plenty of space and opportunity to do that next year as well. So, of course, none of this is going to happen because I'm an idiot. But this is at least the roadmap to what I would do this offseason, where you're going to be a bottom 5 team again, but you've cleared some space. You've got a monster draft class coming in this 2023 draft class. It would be a monster draft class for the Sharks. And then you're going to kind of plenty of flexibility going forward where, as guys like Bordelot and Robbins and Gushin, those guys can easily slot into the lineup, especially after the trade deadline when you can move off a bunch of pieces and you have you're going to lose guys to injury and all that fun stuff, but you're setting yourself up for success and flexibility going forward. So So yeah, that's it. I will be back tomorrow. We'll talk about the awards ceremony because I will be at the awards ceremony, and hopefully Erik Karlsson wins the Norris, and gonna have some behind the scenes footage, all that fun stuff. So fully credentialed, I'll be at there. So make sure you guys are following along for that. You can follow, of course, the show on wherever you get podcasts. You're gonna want to subscribe definitely this week. All the content that's gonna be coming out, all behind the scenes stuff from the draft. So wherever you're getting your podcast, you can watch on YouTube as well. Follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Locked On Sharks. Again, Instagram, I'm going to the Locked On Sharks account. I'm going to be posting a bunch of pictures and scenes and everything like that as well. And you can follow me on Twitter at MyFryhole. So until tomorrow, bye, friends.